to the Radio Woman podcast. It's been a minute. I literally had to drag myself out of my bed to do this. So I am currently on leave. And I thought that by now I probably would have recorded like 2 or 3 podcasts. But there you go. When I started my leave, I literally went off like my routine. So this is not surprising. Right, how have you guys been? I hope you've been well. I'm so excited to be on here today. Right, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about habits that propel us forward and also help us maintain or sustain momentum. Right, and when we talk about habits, I know this is not a topic that is new to us. It is something that we've heard over and over again. We've heard how important it is. But as with all things, right, most times some of us just like pay lip service to this, right? So most of us, we have lots of like aspirations, we have lots of goals, we have big lofty dreams, but we do not actually take our time to build the systems that will help us get there. And basically those systems are made up of a series of decisions and actions that we take, which are essentially the definition of habits, right? And yeah, habits are very important. I can't even underestimate the importance. And I've seen how much it has changed my life in the past 2 to 3 years. Like, I have changed there's something called like exponentially, I would say that. And it's so beautiful to see. Alhamdulillah, like I'm really in a good space, and I'm just so grateful for it all. But I do have to credit the fact that habits that I have built over the years are making me reap those benefits now, and it's just something that you have to continue working on every single day. Right, so when we think about habits, right, some of them habits can come in form of instructions or rules, right? So for example, when we think about when we were children, you have habits like, your parents will be like, when you wake up, you say your prayers. After you say your prayers, you sweep your room, arrange your bed, go downstairs, go do this, go do that, right? And all those things are actually supposed to help keep a form of like balance. So make sure that those things will help you, be early to school, or make sure that your room is clean, all those things. So those are like a way that, you can create a system that was born out of like instructions, right? Another example is, in faith, in religion, right? So I am Muslim. So you hear stuff like, we have our 5 pillars of Islam. Those are basically, when you think about it, the big picture of it, they are systems that actually propel us towards, that goal of, being closer to Allah, attaining Al-Jannah Firdaus, right? So those are systems. So when you think about it that way, you see that, okay, habits can also come in form of like instructions, because the 5 pillars, some of the things they were supposed to do were actually mandated to us by Allah, right? So we have some of them that are obligatory, and we have some of them that it's pleasing, it's good if you do it, but it's not mandatory, meaning it's optional, right? So those are ways that habits can come up. But one thing that I want to bring out there is, for habits that come in form of like instructions, rules, instead of rules, maybe by society or by anything, as an individual, you want to really internalize it and think about, how best can I approach this thing, right? How does it, you really need to find a why for it, right? So that way you are able to really believe and understand why you are doing some certain things, and it also helps you to maintain those habits, right? So if you know that as a Muslim, the first thing that you need to know is you need to believe that, you need to believe in Allah, you need to believe His books, you need to believe in the angels, right? You really need to internalize those things and find ways to actually believe it truly, so that those habits can serve you well. You need to say your salah. Why do you need to say your salah? apart from the fact that yes, it was mandated by Allah that this is how I want you to worship me. Your only goal in this life is to worship me. You also just want to really think about it, right? What are the evidences of these things in my life? How has it drawn me closer to Allah? You want to think about the why for yourself, like really reinvent it, think about it for yourself, so that way it sticks and you are able to continue on that journey of maintaining and really loving those systems that you have in place. So another way that habits are formed, I would say a second way is like by default. So there are some things that we just do, like to, should I say, stay alive, or just we do them like naturally. So stuff like have your bath, brush your teeth, eat. Some of those things are habits, right? They're actions, they're things that we do, and some of them are to keep us alive, some of them are to keep us safe, some of them are to visit friends, all these other things that we do that are just part of like default, part of our normal life, day-to-day activities or life. And a third way I would say that habits are formed is by intentionality. So maybe there's a particular thing that we are gunning for, there's a particular goal that we've set our eyes on, and we realize that there are some things that we are currently doing that might not necessarily take us there, or there are some missing actions that we don't have, and without those actions we can't really get to where we are going to, so we then now incorporate them into our lives. So that's like the third way. So the first one is like by rules or instructions, right? The second way is by default, some of the things that we just do day to day that we've just grown up to know that okay, these are things that you do, you eat, you have your bath, you drink water, some of those things, right? Then the third thing is by intentionality, knowing that okay, this is who I want to be, this is this is where I'm going to, and I need to incorporate some things, bring some things on board to kind of get me there. So talking about habits, right? We're talking about how to build those habits that propel us forward, just give us that sense of general progress in our lives, habits that help us sustain that, sense of moving forward, progression, that momentum that we have. And there's a popular quote by James Clear that says that you do not rise to the level of your goals, but rather you fall to the level of your systems, aka your habits. And I just need to point out here that if you haven't read Atomic Habits by James Clear, you need to get that book. If you are close to me, if you've listened to me, if you've been around me for a while, you know that I have mentioned that book from time to time. That book came into my life in 2020, and I can assure you that my life has not been the same. Like, if there's something called like explosive change or exponential change, I would say that I've experienced that, and I'm still experiencing it thanks to some of the insights I got from that book, because it kind of gave me for me, I like to know like the why. I like to go to like the root cause of things. So that book kind of opened my eyes to say, okay, these are why you feel like you are not really making progress in the areas that you want to. These are why sometimes you set some goals and you don't achieve them. These are why so that book kind of gave me like a holistic picture on how to approach habits, and I am I'm so thankful that I came across that book. And the funny part is the book had been in my house for about a year plus. I think my husband bought it or something, and it had been in my house, and you just see it and you just don't read it. But in 2020, I keep saying it, that was the year that I called myself out on my bullshit. I'm like, what, Seki, something needs to change. And that book was able to help me kickstart that chain reaction of actually changing my mindset, changing my attitude towards some certain things and all that. I think generally anyways. But yeah, if you haven't read Atomic Habits you do need to read it. It is an amazing book. It's a bit big, but I can assure you that you would enjoy it. Thinking about it, I might just do a giveaway on this book to just show you how much I love the book. I told myself in April I was going to read it again. I started reading, although I didn't finish it, but I mean, that renewed and refreshed knowledge is just, it's mind blowing, right? So yeah, I probably would do a giveaway. Let's see about that. But yeah, moving on. So like I said, you do not rise to the level of your goals, rather you fall to the level of your systems. And this just really emphasizes why habits are really, really important, right? So James Clear would say that, if we have a goal, that's like our desired outcome, right? If we do not have daily habits that will get us there, if we don't have systems that will get us there, then it's just like we're just wishing, we're just daydreaming, right? So the more time that we spend in actually developing and creating those habits that will work together, marinate together to get us there, then the better for us. So we should actually focus more on the habits than on the goal, because regardless, if you have a good system in place, good actions in place, then surely you would eventually get to your goal. You might not get it like instantly, but you would eventually get to it, especially if you put or you set your eyes on the goal. So when I think about some of the ways that I was able to start building a system, like I said, it's an everyday journey. It's not something that you just do once and you forget about it. It's something that you need to continually retweak, simplify. Some of us think that we need to add more and more habits, but that's not necessarily the case. I mean, in the beginning, maybe if you were someone that had like no structure at all, no type of routine at all, it might just seem like, oh, you're adding a lot of things. But after a while, you kind of get to that sense of, you get to that stage of, okay, I shouldn't be adding more. It's more of now tweaking or removing some even, right? So it's just trying to think about your own individual situation and say, what is the best approach for me in this time in my life? And that brings me to the very first way. So I'm just going to, so let me do it this way. I'm going to list out like the 7 steps that I used when I started off to start building structures and routine into my life, and which also led me to start seeing a general sense of progression in my life. So the first thing is, recognize your season. The second thing is have a compelling why. The third thing is, fit your habit into your established routine. The fourth thing is tell somebody about it. The fifth thing is, even if you miss or you skimp on that habit or that action that you have put in place, do not stop. The sixth thing is have an enabling environment. And the seventh thing is have an accountability partner or group or community that you have. So those were the things that helped me start off on my journey. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, and I will keep saying it. Go and read Atomic Habits by James Clear if you haven't. But these in particular, these 7 steps in particular, helped me when I first started out. So talking about the first thing, recognize your season. This is one major reason why majority of us have been struggling to build a habit. It took me a while to recognize this, but when I did, it was like a game changer for me. Knowing that, in life, there are different seasons, and learning not to force things that do not naturally go with the flow of that particular season is a life changer, right? And that's just something that we need to have in the back of our mind. Life is in seasons, and knowing this saves us a lot of stress, a lot of feelings of self-doubt, a lot of feelings of, should I say, discontent, a lot of feeling of overwhelmed or self-disappointment, basically. So let's put this into perspective. So for example, you want to start exercising maybe morning and night for about 60 minutes, but you just had a baby like 3 weeks ago. Or another example is you want to start a skincare routine at night, but your work requires that you are on night shift. You do not need a soothsayer to tell you that you are literally setting yourself up for failure, because it's not only are the odds stacked against you, because it's not an activity that, number one, you're not used to doing the activity. It's something that you just want to incorporate in your life. You now have obstacles in your way. So in the first example, the obstacle is the fact that you just had a baby 3 weeks ago. And in the second example, the obstacle is that you most times are working 9 shifts. So when you want to build a habit, you need to identify, does this habit, this particular way I'm thinking about it, does it flow with my current situation, with my current season? Does it flow? Because that's the first thing. If it does not flow, then it is bound to fail, right? It doesn't mean that it will be impossible to do, but it just means that you will find it harder to follow through. Again, it's just like a loop. You say you want to do an action because you want to hit a certain goal, but it is always in conflict. It's not coming easy to you. At a point you miss 1, 2, 3 days, then you now start having those thoughts. You have those thoughts of, can you ever do anything right? Can you ever follow through? You're not consistent, you're not this, you're not that. And from there, you now give up and you go back to that cycle of, you're back to square one, right? So you want to think about it, right? A tip I would say is, think of the habits you are currently struggling with building and take stock of your present situation. Are they in alignment or are they at loggerheads? You really want to think about it. Sometimes that's just like the easiest thing to do, and it kind of gives you a different perspective to say, perhaps I am trying to incorporate a habit that cannot work right now. So what can I tweak? Is it that you just need to wait out that season? So for example, maybe you are pregnant, or maybe you are in school, or maybe you're out of the country or something. Is it that you need to wait out that season because there's absolutely nothing you can do? So maybe you are pregnant already. Maybe what you are trying to incorporate doesn't go well with pregnancy. Then perhaps you need to wait that season out. Then you now pursue that habit or that goal, right? And that just gives you a sense of peace, to be honest, because you now know that, okay, you've literally scheduled that habit. You have it at the back of your mind, but you just have that peace. So it's no longer a case of, I'm procrastinating. It's more of a case of, I understand and I recognize that this thing that I'm trying to do doesn't fit with where I am presently. And when I am out of this situation, I can now, take on that habit. So that's the first thing. Recognize your season. Number 2 is have a compelling why. So this is not really far-fetched, because again, when we do things, it's usually divided into, why do you do it? What do you need to do, and how can you get there, or how can you achieve whatever it is, right? So why is one of the strongest points. You need to know why you are doing certain things, right? You probably have heard the power of why. Knowing why you are trying to do something just makes it more concrete. It fuels that energy, that passion you might have for it, rather than just doing something just for the sake of it, right? So knowing why you are trying to build a particular habit, why it's so important for you, would propel you to stay consistent. So it must be a strong enough why for you, and not just because maybe your spouse, your society, your child or anything, not because they say, not because they think that's what you should do, but because it's what you need to do, because it's best for you. It's what you need to actually move forward. So you need to think about it. If you remember my first point of recognizing your season, having a strong why is probably the only reason that can override the first point of recognizing your season. Having a strong why has the potential to override trying to build a habit that doesn't align with your current situation or season. So there are situations where you find that people are doing extraordinary things even when it doesn't seem to be in alignment or in flow with their current situation, and that's because they have a very strong why. They have strong conviction in what they are doing. What example can I give now? So maybe, for example, maybe somebody had an accident, right, and they're bedridden. and they say that maybe they will never work again or something. But because maybe they have a very strong why, maybe their dream has always been to, I don't know, maybe run the Olympics or something, something, they had that strong why, and for some reason they start to work with their minds, they start to work with their brain, and before you know it, someone that they thought would be bedridden has started making steps to walk, their recovery is faster and everything. And that's a situation that ideally is probably not. So maybe they thought that something would take the person, maybe their therapy would take 6 months, but because they have a very strong driving force, it takes them 2 months, 3 months to be. I know we've all heard those stories before, right? So having a compelling why is probably the only thing that will override trying to build a habit that doesn't align with your current season. And I hope you remember that, just in case you are in a fix or something like that, right? So it's very important. Without a compelling why, you will most likely follow the bandwagon, right? Without a compelling why, when you have a goal, you will most likely not achieve it because it's not a strong enough why. And sometimes when we think about why, we think about it in the sense of, oh, me, it has to be my benefit, it has to be solely my benefit. But I also find that when you have a why that goes beyond you, that is bigger than you, right, it is even sweeter, it is even more propelling for you. So so an example that I had then was, I took up the habit of reading Surah Al-Mulk before going to bed. So I had always known that, reciting like Surah Al-Mulk, Surah Al-Waqia was good before going to bed, but I didn't really know why, or maybe I couldn't remember, right? So fast forward during that time, a few months in 2020, I read that perchance. So, for example, if perchance you end up in Jahannam, right? Surah Al-Mulk will intercede for you till Allah in His infinite mercies bring you out. And that was like, when I saw that, I was like, hey, that's see opportunities, all right. See opportunities. I was like, okay, let me do this, right? Let me start reciting Surah Al-Mulk every night. Of course, it wasn't easy, and I can't even tell you now that I read it consistently, or I read it every day. There was even a time that I kind of really, literally stopped. But that was a big push for me to say, you know what, I need to take this seriously, right? It's something I want to do, so I'm going to take it seriously. So another tip I would say is, do some introspection and think about why you really want to follow through on a particular action that you want to take on, right? Write it down and place it somewhere that you will see it to serve as like a reminder for you, to keep you grounded, right? And that's one of the beautiful benefits or power in writing things down. So I always say, try to write something down. Don't keep it in your head. Your brain is dealing with so many things, and you think that you won't forget because you feel so strongly about it, you still feel so passionate about it, but even sometimes if you're not careful, the reason why you start doing something, or you take a step towards something, can get blurry or fuzzy along the way. But having it written down somewhere, when you come across it again, it kind of refreshes that memory. So so that's for the second one. So the third thing is, fit your habit into your established routine. So at the beginning, I mentioned that there are some habits that we have, just to keep us alive, to sustain our day-to-day activities, right? So you want to make sure that if you're trying to build a new habit, you try to fit it around what you already have established, right? And again, this was something I read in Atomic Habit, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant and made so much sense, really. So majority of us already do this subconsciously, but when we intentionally try to work at our habits into our routines, it makes it more obvious and realistic. So what you want to do is slot that particular habit that you're trying to build either before or after an activity that you already do. So for example, you want to start again exercising, and for you already say that, okay, after my prayer in the morning, I would exercise, right? So you already pray every day. If that's something that you already do every day, that's established already. Then you don't want to add exercise into it. So what you can say is, you know what, after my salah, after I finish praying and I do like my dhikri and all that, the next thing I'm going to do is immediately after, I'm going to go to the bathroom, change to my workout wear, and go out the window, go out the door, not the window, or go out the door. Or, you know, if it's an indoor exercise you want to do, you know, the idea is just immediately after this, I'm going to do this, or before I do this, I'm going to do that, right? So, for me personally, doing something after has worked for me better than doing it before, right? I don't know why, maybe it's just my mindset, but for me, I find that it always works better for me. So for example, when I wanted to integrate family time with my husband and kids, so I scheduled it for right after Maghrib prayer, and one reason was because, you know, my prayer had been established, and two, putting it, if I decided to put that habit in the afternoon, it had a high likelihood of not working. It had more chances of me being inconsistent at it, because in the afternoon I probably knee deep in work, or I'm on the road or something, so that wouldn't work, or my kids are in school, so that wouldn't work. So, and I also knew that anytime after 7:38 might also be tricky, because maybe my kids would most likely be in bed and all that. So I tried to look for, okay, which time makes more sense, where everyone will be around, and you know, this habit is most likely to succeed. And I came up with, you know, after Maghrib. And today, that's like when we are supposed to hang out and, you know, just gist and all that. So yeah, so a tip under this particular subtopic is, you know, write down your current routine and look at periods that you can slot in your new habits. Remember, it must be realistic, right? So make sure you write it. Don't just think about it in your head. Again, what is written is half done. So make sure that you write out every single thing that you do. Just do like an audit, every single thing that you do every day, and you know, the usual times that you do them. Then now think about, okay, this new habit I want to incorporate, where would it fit well? Where would it flow nicely with all the other things that I do? And you'll see that you find it easier to actually do those habits. Number 4, tell someone about it. So for me, you know, my husband is one of the people that I tell when I want to do something. I tell him, because I mean, it's the one I see every day, it's the one that's closest to me. But I also have some of my friends that I tell stuff, right? And say, okay, I'm thinking of this, can you know, and that way it's 2 things. So number 1, I might actually bring them on board, okay, and ask and request that they should please keep me accountable for it. But number 2 is that because I have said it to them, I don't want to embarrass myself. So that can also push me to actually stick to the habit. Right? So speaking about your plan to someone who cares about you, you know, increases your chances of you staying on track, particularly if they keep you accountable, right? So go ahead and, you know, ask them to keep you accountable. Don't just assume that because this person loves you. Everybody is dealing with their own stuff, and again, we are all naturally selfish, right? So you want to make sure that if you need accountability, if you want accountability, you ask for it, right? So state it plainly. Don't just assume that they will automatically be your accountability partner. So if you want them to ask you about it maybe every day or every other day or every week, tell them, ask them, oh please, I would like you to maybe remind me at so and so time, or just check on me, you know, just to see how I'm going and all that, right? So think about it, you know, write down maybe 2 or 3 people that you think can hold you accountable to implementing those new habits, and, you know, reach out to them and say, see, I'm trying to work on this thing. This is a goal that I'm trying to achieve. And I know that if I don't do it, maybe I would feel bad or something. Or if I don't tell somebody about it, I might be very slow to executing it, or I might be very slow to incorporating it in my life. So I would really appreciate if you could, you know, hold me accountable to it. So again, that sense of, okay, you've told somebody and you don't want to embarrass yourself, or you don't want to be seen as someone with low integrity, can actually push you to do stuff. Yeah, we're moving on. The 5th thing is, even if you miss one day, if you miss 2 days, if you miss 3 days, do not stop. So in this journey called life, there's always the hustle and bustle. It's not unusual to skip a day or 2 or 3 or 4 or more, right? Or maybe a habit that you just started recently, either intentionally or unintentionally. Because yes, there are some days that you know what you're supposed to be doing, and you intentionally say, you know what, I'm not doing it. So again, I'm on leave. I know there are some things that I should have done, but I'm just like, you know what, please, I just want to, Netflix and chill. I just want to relax and all that. So I know I'm skipping it intentionally. So that's another good thing, being aware that okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but I know that I'm not doing it, right? And you're now saying that okay, but I'll deal with it later or something, right? So it's very okay. It's normal to skip things intentionally, but what you want to do is you want to be careful. You don't want to make it a day-to-day activity. If not, you're going back, you're retrogressing, right? So we don't want that. So it's normal, and you don't need to beat yourself up about it. You need to be kind to yourself, be easy on yourself, and instead try to ensure that you don't skimp up on your new habits regularly. You don't want to try. So if you skipped one day, you don't want to go to the extent of skipping 2-3 days, right? The earlier you're able to nip it in the bud, the better, right? Because the more you stay away from a habit, the less stronger it is, the more you're able to just totally dismiss it and forget about it. So a good analogy that I read somewhere, I think this was from Blessing Abeng. She mentioned that maybe perchance one day yes, it was definitely from Blessing Abeng, you miss brushing your teeth on one occasion. So do you now resolve, will you now say that okay, you stop brushing because you stop brushing for the rest of your life because you missed one day of brushing? No, right? What you will do is the next day you brush your teeth. Sometimes you even want to brush more because you feel like your teeth is not even way dirty. It's full of plaque and all that from even the day before. So just because you miss something, because you stop having your bath, doesn't mean that one day, you didn't have your bath one day, doesn't mean that you will not have your bath for the rest of the week or for the rest of the year, right? So let's just be kind to ourselves. Our minds play a lot of trick on us, and it kind of makes us harsh to ourselves, right, with the thoughts that run through them. So when we realize that just because we didn't do something one day doesn't mean that we should beat ourselves up and just conclude that we are unreliable or inconsistent, right? We just need to keep pushing and taking steps every single day, right, to get better and better. So yeah, if you miss something, if you miss a habit, don't stop. Just try and pick up from where you left off, right? Yeah. So the sixth thing is have an enabling environment. So a supportive environment includes not just the people, because a lot of times we talk about how people is very important, but it also includes physical features. It can be in the form of technology, it can be in form of how you arrange your environment, it can be how you arrange your office, your bedroom, or whatever. So before you put up an objection that you do not have an enabling environment, you might want to consider actually creating one for yourself. And this doesn't have to be an uphill task. So again, I have an example for you, and I'll be referring to when I mentioned that I wanted to start reading Surah Al-Mulk every night, or even just reading every night, right? So I had planned to recite it the last thing at night before going to bed, and I knew that to do that I had to be saying my Quran every night as a cue, right? And to fix this, on my side of the bed, I didn't have like a stand or a should I call it like this bedside drawer. I didn't have that. The bedside drawer was actually on my husband's side of the bed. So what I did was I took the bedside drawer and brought it to my side of the bed, and in that way I was able to put my Quran on it, so that way by the time I'm going to bed, I see my Quran, and that's the cue to tell me that okay, you need to read your Surah Al-Mulk before going to bed. The same thing I did when I wanted to be reading every day. So what I did for that one instead was I wanted to read one chapter of any book I was reading every day before going to bed, right? So what I did was on my app, my reading app, I set a reminder that I just wanted to, that reminds me and says, okay, it's time to read and everything. So I set a reminder, and now I don't even use that reminder anymore because it's like second nature now. I already know that, I read one chapter before I go to bed. Do I miss some days? Yes. Some days is unintentional, maybe because I'm so knackered, but there are some days that is intentional. I'm sleepy already, and you know what, I'm just like, I can't bear to read anything this night. I'm just going to go to bed, right? But yeah, creating that enabling environment is very necessary. Yeah, and this is where a lot of us have blocks. We feel like, oh, we don't have this, we don't have that, so we cannot do it. But instead of thinking about the objections or what you don't have, why not think about, okay, how can I now create this enabling environment for myself? So a tip, look around you. Are there things that you need to move around or put in place to increase your chance of, making that habit successful, that action you want to do successful? What can you move around? Are there people in your environment that you need to, speak to, that you need to, are there people you need to chase away? Are there people that you need to bring on board, right? Those are some of the things you want to think. Are there some technology that you need to make use of? Your calendars, an app. Is there something that you need that would help you on your quest to incorporate in a particular habit in your life? And the last thing is, have an accountability partner, join a group or a community. So for someone like me, I'm more of a solo journeyer, right? I tend to work better on my own, but I also know that that's because, again, there's the quote of, you, if you want to go faster, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go with others. And I do recognize that, but it's still something, that I am working on. But naturally, I am wired to, work alone. I'm able to do things at my own pace. I'm just like that, right? But I also know that being part of like a group or a community, and you don't necessarily have to be an active member, like you are the one that is talking or whatever every day. Just sometimes just being in that community, in a group of people, now makes it like your default. I think again, in the book Atomic Habits, I'm not sure I'm going to say it in the best way, but it's basically like, if you are in a community of people that are already doing maybe there's a goal you're aspiring to meet. So maybe you want to be a runner, right? If you join a community of runners, if you join a community that the goal that you're aspiring to be is like their default, before you know it, you would step up to that goal and you will start running, because it's like a norm in the group you are in, right? And there's also another, should I say, quote now, or lesson that he shared, that people would rather be with a wrong group of people. People would rather be wrong based on the people that they are around than be right on their own, right? So it just shows you how powerful a community and group is. And this really reminds me of like in your teenage years, in our teenage years, we would rather we know that maybe what our peers are doing is wrong, but because of that peer pressure, that need to want to belong, we would rather be wrong with them than to stick our own ground in rights, in quotes. We know that this is what should be right, but because every other person is doing this, we'd rather be wrong with them than to stick our guns and say, you know what, this is right, or this is wrong, I'm not joining you, this is right. So that's just, when I saw that, that was very profound for me. And it just shows how we work as human beings. So yeah, being a part of the community, especially if it's a good community that aligns with where you're going, is a big plus. So when you join a community where the habit you're trying to form is a norm, or a group of like-minded people who are also on a journey to building that same habit, it helps a lot. And trust me, we're all struggling with one thing or the other. But with this step, one thing I need to mention though is that you need to ensure that you are you go in with an open mind. You have a positive mindset. You have pure sportsmanship for others, right? So I say this because joining a group can either make you feel downcast or anxious if you are not hitting the habit goals, while others are raving about how they are being consistent with theirs. So if you have that positive mindset, if you have a sense of sportsmanship, if you are open-minded, then this would not get to you as much. It doesn't mean that you won't get a bit, why am I not hitting it as quickly as possible? But you can now change things around. You can change your thought process and say, you know what, if these people are hitting their goals, I can also do it. And because I'm in their company, I'm in good hands. And you can use that to think about it as, you know what, I'm going to use their own success as a catalyst for my own improvement. Yeah, so that is it for joining a group or having a community, right? And if there is no community that you can join, you can create one, right? You can create one yourself. Yeah, so, but I'm sure that there are always some, but again, there's nothing wrong in also creating yours. Yeah, so I mean, that's all for building habits that help you propel forward and also sustain momentum. Like I said, this is something that I used in my early stages of like trying to build a structure and a routine around my life. It is not exhaustive, it is not a one size fits all, but I'm sure that there will be 1, 2, or 3 things that you can pick for yourself that can also help you on your journey. And if it's that you're trying to rejig things, I'm sure some of these can come in as good insights or reminders. Yeah, so on that note, this would be the end of this episode. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Again, if you like this podcast, if you're enjoying the Radiant Woman podcast, please like, subscribe, share. Subscribe to the podcast, share, rate give us a review. Follow the community at Nisaba on Instagram. You can follow me on my personal page as well as Seki Alao. And I'm working on a number of things, and I'm so excited. So I invite you to join me, and see you in the next episode. Bye.